On Tuesday, January 13th, 2026, more than 500 beef producers from across Alberta came together in Innisfail, not out of anger, but out of confusion, concern, and a desire for clarity surrounding the new CFIA livestock traceability rule changes. Whether these regulations are right or wrong, one thing became clear that night. Producers did not feel properly informed. This meeting is not about pointing fingers. It was about taking responsibility together. Yes, board members and industry groups must acknowledge that communication with producers has fallen short. Yes, producers also have a responsibility to read emails, attend meetings, and stay engaged. But most importantly, we must come together, large operations, small operations, cow-calf, feedlot, acreage owners, and speak openly about what's best for the entire beef industry, not just a select group. As you watch this video and you hear stories shared, the frustrations, the fear, the real life experiences dealing with CFIA, try to put yourself in the producer's boots. Have compassion. Ask yourself, how much government oversight is too much? And what is the long-term cost of losing your family farm, the last frontier of small-scale agriculture in Canada? Some have claimed there was misinformation shared that night, but nearly everything presented came directly from the CFIA website itself. And so we ask, if this is misinformation, why has CFIA not stepped forward to clarify it? Why did industry representatives in the room not stand up to correct it? The presentation reflects the best understanding available to us, taken straight from the CFIA's own materials and delivered to producers who are fighting to protect their livelihoods. This meeting is a starting point, a conversation, a wake-up call, and now we invite you to listen.
So good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming on this beautiful January evening. I wish it was a more festive occasion and we had some good news to share with you, but there are some challenges coming our way as not just beef producers, but as farmers. My name is Tim Hoven. I am a small rancher from the eastern edge of Clearwater County near Eckville, and somehow the MC role fell to me, so I'm going to be your MC for the evening. We're going to be starting this evening with a little presentation about what exactly the changes are that CFIA is proposing. This all started a month ago when Andrea, I'd get Andrea to wave her hand, but she's way in the back there. She was on the internet researching some 4-H topics and noticed a presentation that CCIA had done about these upcoming changes designed for kids in the 4-H program. And she thought, well, that's a little strange that they're teaching kids about it, but not teaching the producers. So Andrea texted me some information. We organized an event in Spruceview. That was on, I believe, December 13th. That was the day we had that terrible storm and there's a 100-car pileup north of Airdrie. So because of the bad weather, CCIA was supposed to be there, but they canceled due to the bad weather. And we still had about 90 people show up with the bad weather and the bad roads. It was at that time, after the meeting, we decided people wanted to have a second meeting where we can get more information out to more people with hopefully better weather, and the weather came our way, which is good news. We invited CCIA to come here and explain the regulations. They didn't want to explain them. They said, we're only here to, I believe the exact quote was, we're here to monitor the database and teach people how to use the database. But we still invited them. They were going to come here and talk for a few minutes, and then on Friday at about 5:30, they declined the invite and said they would not be coming. Some of the confusion today with people thinking the meeting was canceled was CCIA posting, I think repeatedly, that they were not coming to the event, and they said it in a way that sounded like the meeting was canceled, and they didn't clarify things very well. CFIA was invited to come and explain their regulations. They declined as well. So unfortunately, you have to hear me talk about the proposed regulations for a few minutes. Some people have accused the producers of sharing false information and misinformation to get people fired up, we're going to be going through CFIA's own information about the changes, just so everyone has the common understanding of what the proposed changes are. So back in December, I Googled something and I was directed to a CFIA website where I found this PDF. Now I tried looking for it again and couldn't find the link. So I don't know if the PDF is still up there, but I downloaded it. So we're just going to go through a few slides. So the new proposed regulations are all going to be highlighted in yellow, and the ones that aren't highlighted are the old ones. Or I should say the current ones. So premise identification. I'm sure we all have our premise ID. I think you need it to get purple fuel. So this is now required, and it wasn't required before. Or this is what they're proposing. Obtain a premise identification number from your provincial premise program authority. Refer to it. You have to be up to date. When you purchase approved indicators, the ear tags, you have to report your premise ID. So not just your farm name like we have to do right now. If you are required to report the premise identification number of your site and you do not have one, you must report to the responsible administrator the following information: the legal description of the site, your name, telephone number, a list of all the animal species present at the site. So if you're taking animals to someone else's farm, they don't have a premise ID, you have to record all the species of animals they have on their farm and report that to CFIA. And you have to record what type of agriculture operation. You have to report any changes to the administrator, and you have to do that within 7 days of the change. So no changes with identifying your animals, and when the animals leave your farm or your premise ID location, they need to have that yellow indicator tag. The arrival of cattle at your site, you can see a lot of new changes. When the cattle arrive at your site, not if you're selling, if you're buying, you must report the following information: the premise ID of where they came from, the premise ID of your site, the date and time they left the departure site, the date and time they arrived so they can track how long they were being transported, the identification number of your approved indicator, so a list of all the CCIA tags that are arriving at your farm, and the license plate number of the truck doing the transportation. You are not required to report the departure of the cattle from your farm if they're going to a community pasture. And you have to do that within 7 days. You are not required to report the arrival of cattle at a leased pasture and their return to your farm if all the animal kept at the leased pasture were from that same farm.
Is it safe to assume this goes for sheep, goats, and every other animal?
If it's got 4 legs on your farm,
We're going to have a Q&A question at the very end, okay?
right, I'll repeat the questions if it comes up. Loss of approved indicators, nothing really new. You have to report the application of the approved indicator. When applying an approved indicator to cattle, you must report the following information to the responsible administrator. So if a cow arrives on your farm, it doesn't have an ear tag, you stick one in, the identification number of the new tag, its old ID number, the premise ID of your farm, the premise ID of the last farm it was at, and once again, the license plate of the truck doing the delivery. And you have to do that within 7 days of putting a new button in that ear. Disposal of cattle carcasses. When disposing of cattle carcasses on site, you must report the following information to the proper authorities: the premise ID number of the site where the carcass was disposed of. So if you have an animal die, you're disposing it on your farm, you have 7 days to report that you disposed of that carcass. The big change to the prohibitions is you can no longer give, sell, or distribute your CCIA tags to other people. Now this is the penalty amount. This isn't easily found on the website, but I used an AI to dig through CFIA's website, and these are the penalties. For individuals who are not committing the violation in the course of business or for financial benefit, so if a kid's in 4-H, they get less fines if they break the rules. So a minor fine is $500, serious is $800, and very serious is $1,300. For corporations, other entities, or violations in the course of business for financial benefit, that would be all of us farmers, minor $1,300, serious $6,000, and very serious is $10,000. So the fines are heavy. Once again, if you send your CCIA tag information 8 days instead of 7, you're in violation and you could be fined. Any questions right now? Those are the proposed changes that I could find, and that's why we're having this meeting. Yes? I do not know. The question was, is that in total, or is that a fine per animal, per violation? It's probably per violation. It was per animal. Yeah, so they have the ability to fine per animal. So if you move 50 animals, you're not following the regulations, it's 10,000 times 50. So after the December meeting, Dawn put out one Facebook post, and it really took off. It got shared. Dawn, how many times was your post shared?
I've been over 100,000.
Over 100,000 times that post has been shared, so I don't know how many times it has been viewed all across Canada, but it is a very important issue, and people are really excited about it. So I've got a few slides here. This is why CFIA is doing this. This is the reason from their own documentation. The objective of the proposed amendments is to enhance the traceability regulations to increase Canada's ability to prevent, prepare for, and respond to animal disease outbreaks or other emergencies. This would reduce impacts on the agricultural industry, reduce the resources required by both industry and government related to response activities, and help maintain access to international markets. So that's the purpose of this. They do not want a repeat of mad cow. If there is a disease outbreak, they would like to sit down at a computer, type in the CCIA tag number of the infected animal, and then their computer would spit out exactly where that animal's been its entire life. But more than that, it would know all the adjacent farms near where that animal has ever been, so they know which animals down to that CCIA tag have ever been adjacent to the animal that is infected. And because we have to report, or we're supposed to report within 7 days, at any point CCIA or CFIA could sit down at the computer, type in that ear tag, and know exactly where that animal is for every animal across the country. So they would have a up-to-date database of where every animal is in this country, except Quebec because they have their own rules. So after Dawn shared that, people were getting excited, people were calling their MPs, they were calling their MLAs. Michelle Rempel-Garner made this Twitter post. Dear ranchers and beef lovers, don't email Conservative MPs. We're on your side. We'll help you fight this crazy liberal nonsense. Help me ask why the Canadian Cattle Association has done zip to fight this. Brutal boys, do better. We see you and we're not impressed. Pierre Poilievre stepped in. If taxes on fertilizer, farm equipment, and fuel weren't enough, now the Liberals are planning on amending the Canadian Food Inspection Agency regulations on identification and traceability regs this spring, adding endless red tape on farmers and ranchers across Canada. This is all while Canadians are struggling more than ever to put food on the table. It's time to cut the taxes, slash the red tape on those who grow, ship, and sell food so Canadians can afford to eat. So I think this was about Wednesday of last week. And the momentum kept going. Brad Wall, the former Premier of Saskatchewan, no further regulations needed, period. Thanks, Brad. Then the Minister of Ag in the province of Alberta stepped in with a statement. Alberta producers have raised real concerns about proposed federal livestock traceability changes. We've been clear, traceability must work in the real world. That means taking the time to engage industry and avoiding new red tape, barriers, or costs for farmers and ranchers. I've raised Alberta's concerns directly with the federal minister, and he will continue advocating for solutions that protect animal health and producer viability. I believe this was last Thursday. On Thursday, then, the Saskatchewan Cattle Association called for a halt to the implementation of these changes. They listened to their producers. Then on Friday at about 5:30, after all the news had shut down and after the weekend had started and everyone went home for the weekend, the Alberta beef producers released a statement saying that they would like a pause as well. ABP is recommending that Canadian Food Inspection Agency halt the finalization of the upcoming federal traceability regs. I'm not going to read that whole one. And then, after initially supporting CFIA and what they were doing, the Canadian Cattle Association kind of must have been listening to their members, and they did a little bit of a flip-flop, and they backed their producers. We are pleased that CFIA announced this morning that they will pause any publication of the proposed amendments to Part 15 of the Health of Animals regs. So one thing we have to note here, and I think it's on the next slide, is that CFIA isn't stopping it. They're not even really pausing it. They're just slowing down on the publishing of the new regulations. That's all they're doing. So when you hear government officials and CFIA reps talking about how it's paused, it's not. They just took their foot off the gas. So then on Saturday morning, Danielle Smith released a statement. Alberta's cattle producers and many citizens have raised serious concerns about the proposed livestock traceability guidelines from the CFIA. And I know the Premier's office started receiving lots of emails and phone calls, and they started investigating this early in the week as well. I don't know what pressure they put on to the CCIA or the Alberta beef producers or CFIA, but I'm sure they had some role in getting CFIA to take their foot off the gas. This is the important statement from this important part of the statement from the Alberta beef producers. A traceability system ultimately depends on producer participation and confidence. Advancing regulatory changes without broad producer buy-in risks creating a system that does not function as intended and does little to protect producers, animal health, or market access during a disease event. The most important thing all of you need to remember, if someone in government or one of these regulatory agencies is making a law that you as producers do not support and does not have the buy-in from a vast majority of producers, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. So I'm glad that ABP realizes that as well. So I don't know if many of you were following this on social media, but this is a comment I saw on Facebook. And this is just to show the mentality of some of the people in the beef industry. If a neighbor down the road ends up with a disease outbreak, I don't want the government guessing where my cows are. I want them to know exactly where my herd is so we can protect them. So to focus in, we have a producer here who had to deal with CFIA protecting his animals. I'd like to ask Jason Smith to come up and give a few words. He's a producer from Eckville.
Thank you. I started raising animals in '99, and it was white-tailed deer. Did that up until 3 years ago. 12 years ago, we started raising bison. So, and as soon as I got in the deer industry, right away got involved in the boards, and wasn't very long, and I was on the board and then the president, and spent many years doing that. What's happening right now, when you hear they're pulling their foot off the gas, we've seen this 3 or 4 times in the deer industry. So there was, 10, 12 changes there. So once you got 10 or 12 changes, they took their foot off the gas, and we're gonna talk to industry and we're gonna fix this. That's what they tell us. So they're gonna come back in 6 months, and those 10 or 12 things are gonna be there, and there's gonna be 8 or 10 more. And then what happens is then we're scrambling, and we go and we negotiate. And we negotiate down to 14 changes. So the 12 changes we got today, we're gonna get 2 more, and then we're gonna live with that. And then every year you get a new manual and you get a new set of rules. And the manual goes from 70 pages to 80. And they tell you the changes at the back, or most of them, but there's changes all throughout it. It's what happens. They are not in this to help protect your animals. The CFIA does one thing. They kill animals. That is the only thing the CFIA has ever done, is kill animals. Every one of you out here raises animals, takes care of animals, treats your animals, loves your animals. They don't. So my experience in the deer industry is there was a lot of regulations that we had to follow. And when I started, I thought, you know what? I ran my oil field business pretty well. I want to do a really good job. So I built probably the best fences that anyone that I knew, because I double fenced my farm. When I started, they talked about CWD. Right as I got in, BSE happened. So I double fenced my farm. So I had a unique thing that nobody had. We had virtually a closed herd. Most of the animals that came in, or most of the genetics that came in, was with AI. So my family grew up, my daughters grew up. I got pictures of Cassidy with a bottle fed in her bassinet. So the kids grew up, lived this thing. I became the largest deer producer in Western Canada, did a lot of really cool things, went a lot of really neat places. And the one thing about CWD is the animals all get sick, or when they get sick, they get skinny, they sit by the water bowls, they drool, they die. And that's what happens. So when you ship animals to Saskatchewan, to a hunt preserve, which I owned, and to many other people, these animals go there, and as much as the media will tell you it's shooting fish in a barrel, it ain't quite like that. We had 1,500 acres in one block, and we had deers that we called veterans that just didn't get shot, just couldn't find them. And lots of farms had this. So I had 2 deer that were on one farm for 6 months or 5 months. And then they shot them, they submitted the heads for testing, and they tested positive for CWD. So the government sent me a letter and showed up on my doorstep. And they said that you have CWD. And I said, oh, how do you figure that? Well, these animals that you sold to this producer, they come up with CWD. And I said, well, that was like half a year ago. And I go, yep. But we guarantee that they could not contract it and test at the stage they did in the 6 months. We guarantee it. I said, okay, well, I disagree. But so they said, for now, you're under 100% quarantine. You can't move an animal on or off your farm. And we'll be there right away to inspect your animals. So, and he told me on the phone, how many animals do you got in the deep freeze? Because we had to test the heads. So I had 3 or 4. So we had to send those in right away. They tested negative. And he said, I guarantee if I come to your farm, out of the 550 deer, I'm going to pick 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that have CWD. I said, okay, show up, fill your boots. So they show up, and I think there's 2 of them, I can't remember. It was a little traumatic. And they went through, and they said, we guarantee. We went through every deer, counted every deer, looked at every tag, and they both looked at each other. They talked away from me, and I said, so which ones have it? They said, well, we can't find any. But we're still positive you got it. And there's been a test in the US for 15 years that's a live test, but the only test that the CFIA will accredit is after they're dead. And why would that be? Because they're trying to get rid of us. So they said, but you don't have to kill your deer. you can just keep them, but you can just never move on or off your farm. Well, my feed bill was $200,000 a year, so that wasn't really an option. So we agreed. We had to sign paperwork to say they'd kill, but then they wouldn't kill the deer. I had to do it. So the unfortunate job came down to me and my son-in-law, and we shot 550 deer. And it was the most horrific thing. When you walk onto your property that you've known and loved forever, animals that you know and love, and you go into the pen where all your daughter's bottle feds are, and you shoot all these named animals, and you go through all this shit. And then you have men coming onto your property telling you, I don't know, what were you, 20, 19? They told her she could only put 45 animals into a bin at a time. She was her class valedictorian. She can count to 45. And this son of a bitch sat there, and he was a head CFIA guy in Edmonton, or in Red Deer. And how many is that now? How many is that? As she's hanging her bottle feds in the grapple of the tractor or the skid steer to dump them in. I'm like, piss off. Sorry, you guys have all handled cattle, so you've heard this shit before, so I'm not gonna keep anything from you don't already know. So this is how this goes. This horrific event for 3 days. We've got pictures and video of hundreds of deer lined up, headless, crying children, stuff that I don't know that me and Denver ever want to go through, and I haven't hunted since. I've hunted all over the world. It's the most important thing I ever did. Loved doing it. Took my kids all over the world hunting, and I can't do it anymore because of this. So then when it was all said and done, they test my animals. They get back, and there was not one positive. And that SOB looked me in the eyes, and he said to me, well, at least we know. So I promised my wife I wasn't going to go to jail over this, and I wasn't going to beat anyone, because there was some conversations about what was going to happen there and what was said. So I can tell every one of you that when I started in the deer industry in '99 and became very involved, listened to the few years previous to me because I wasn't in it at the very beginning, this is the same shit. The Americans are not asking for this. They don't even tag their animals with high-frequency tags, virtually none of them. I had a hunting business, so in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks since I knew that I was going to be speaking again, I phoned a lot of my clients that were cattle ranchers and farmers and stuff down there, learned as much as I can, talked to a few people that export a lot of animals. These tags are cut out. They're dropped as soon as they cross the frickin' border. They don't care. You think Ralph Klein said, shoot, shovel, and shut up? Go talk to an American. They don't give a shit. They're claiming that your guys' hard work and all your beef, they're claiming it as their own as soon as it gets down there. It sits, they feed it for 6 months or 6 days, and they stamp USDA on it. That's what they do. So if we're going to do something, we need to do it as Albertans. I've traveled the world. I've traveled the world with clients, hunting and fishing, seeing the coolest things around. But one thing I really enjoyed was going onto these big ranches. I enjoyed going into the oil patch and seeing some of these huge chemical factories that are 6-quarter sections, shit that I couldn't even imagine working in. And I can tell you something. They're 30 years behind us in the oil industry. I can't say they're 30 years behind us in the cattle industry because there was a lot of really interesting and really intelligent people. But I have never met smarter people than I've met in this province. We are very capable. So, and the other thing that every person in this room knows, that we haven't had a lot of favor from out east. So if Quebec can manage their tagging system and their traceability, I'm fairly convinced you people can do the same. So no matter what happens, it needs to be run and organized by you guys. It needs to be run and organized by people that love these animals, because every CFIA person that was on my farm and was on the other 3 or 4 farms that I had a lot to do with and a lot of information on, very good friends, on depops, they don't raise animals. They don't know how to raise animals. They never had shit on their boots unless it was Fifu dog in their backyard that they stepped in this crap. They don't know what it's like to raise these animals and what to do. So if you don't get really excited today and get after this, we're screwed. So there needs to be a fund put together, because either the asshole up here that's shooting his mouth off or the big guy in the back that's got 10,000 head Some of us are going to get charged. We live that. A very good friend of mine got charged with CFIA. He was able to negotiate down. He paid a $35,000 fine for not following the rules. We have to fight this with disobedience, because I can guarantee you, I don't know how many hours and how many days I negotiated with CFIA on regulations and rules to make it better for the deer producers. And in my last 8 years as a deer producer, it wasn't excitement for my daughter, because they're going to take over our farm. Denver and Cassidy are going to take over my farm. So now we're mostly cattle. We still got 120 or 30 bison left, but that's what we're doing. It's been a big change. But the last 8 years that I was in the deer industry, it wasn't hope, it wasn't excitement that Cassie was going to be able to raise deer for 30 years. It was like, when is my time? That's all it was. It was a countdown to every time I took heads into the lab in Edmonton, when they were going to take me out. So I guarantee you that the same shit will happen, because there will be a political reason that benefits somebody, and we all can wear our tinfoil hats and say what we want. But the downfall to this industry and the downfall to your guys' $3,500 calves is going to be the government. It won't be you, and it won't be your animals. So get excited. We need to band together, because the 3 or 4 people that get made example of, they're not going to be able to afford the $200,000 fines. But all of us together, we can afford it, and we can tell them where to shove their shit. And if you don't do it, you're screwed. So this tactic of slowing down, they're just preparing to pick it up again. They're just bringing more troops. I promise you. It's not going to change. Had a few people tell me, well, it's cattle industry, they're not going to stop it. They're not going to do this to us. Look at Venezuela. They're not even a country anymore. They were the 3rd wealthiest economy in the world. They can't even feed themselves. So you don't think it can happen to you? You got your hat on a little too tight. So thank you.
One of the reasons we're collecting people's emails at the back table when you came in was so that we can communicate with people. Jason started to talk about setting up some kind of fund, some kind of new group. That's what we're going to be doing with your email address. So if you came in and you didn't sign in, please sign up so we can contact you. That information will not be going to CFIA. You don't have to worry about that. One person I forgot to mention at the beginning of the evening, Mr. Devin Dreesian, the MLA for Innisfil-Sylvan Lake, is here. I am very thankful that at least one MLA had the guts to come out here and see the electorate, so thank you very much for attending tonight. The Alberta beef producers were invited to be here, and oh, I see someone waving at the back. Good. Well, stand up. Let's see you guys. Thank you for coming. Yeah, Yellowhead riding. My MP. William Stevenson, thank you for coming tonight. And I'm told there's one more. So Blaine Calkins was busy and could not make it tonight, but he sent someone from his office to take notes and keep him updated. So thank you. When you have elected representatives that are afraid to come out and meet the voters, we have a big problem. So thank you to all of you who came here tonight. Our next speaker is Lance Nielsen, and I don't see him here. There he is. Lance is from the county of Stettler, and he is a beef producer, so here's the mic.
Well, thanks for having me, everyone. Oh, sure. So yeah, we're beef farm ranch in Stettler County, so we have cow-calf. We also have a feedlot where we bring in calves, and we bring in other people's calves to custom feed as well. And you know, we try to stay on the cutting edge of technology, right? We've been scanning in every animal and keeping track of every individual RFID tag for a number of years. And you know, so to comply to this actually isn't that big a problem for us. And we gather that data for our own purpose, right? And that data has value. And I don't want to give that data away for free is one aspect of this. But when oh. Okay, I got to hold it up higher. Sorry, guys. So when I initially saw this, and it was Dawn's, well, actually, I saw the Spruce View flyer, and I got thinking about it over Christmas, and then Dawn's flyer, you know, last week. What my immediate thought was, okay, we're adding more regulation on, and bear in mind, I'm telling you, I could comply with this regulation easily for the way we do our farm, as far as we do individual RFID tags. I could actually do that. The labor to do it, that's a little bit different, but we do gather that already. But I saw those, you know, requirements, and you get thinking, okay, I think the average beef herd in Alberta is somewhere around 86 head, right? So that means there's a lot of people with less than 86 head of mother cows in this province. And people that have 20 head, 25, maybe only 5, and they just raise a couple beef for their freezer. But those people that are lifestyle farmers that want to have some place to have their kids, you know, have chores and live that lifestyle, they don't have RFID readers. They probably don't have, some of them don't even have chutes. And to comply with this regulation just becomes onerous, right? And to keep up on the regulation becomes onerous. At some points you wonder, like, am I gonna get fined tomorrow? And if you're sitting there as a lifestyle farmer, like, is it worth it? Is it worth spending the money to comply? Is it worth the threat of, you know, fines, right? And so we're going to see consolidation. You are going to see the small farmers just say, forget it, I'm out. And we're going to see the lifestyle farmers say, I don't want to do this anymore. And so what does that lead to, right? We have small communities that have you know, funding problems for schools and hospitals. We have local businesses and auction marts. They're all going to feel that pinch. So when we're talking about this, we see the regulation, we think, man, I don't want to do that. That's going to take labor and time. But there's a substantial downstream effect to this that's going to hurt our communities. Like, we start losing kids out of schools that maybe are only 1 or 2 kids away from losing funding as it is. You know, those are big things. So I went and did some digging into the CFIA's own documents, right? And they actually published an economic feasibility study, what this costs to comply to, and also what they think the benefit will be with a slightly faster response time to a disease outbreak. So they actually did this economic analysis. And so by their numbers, published on their proposed regulations, it says they figured they could save the industry about $158 million over a 20-year period, which, you know, is nothing at all. And they figure it would cost producers about $128 million over that same period. So they figured it was a net benefit of $30 million over a 20-year period. 30 million over 20 years is what they're pumping up as the net benefit. And so if you divide that up 20 years by how many cows are in Alberta, or Canada, sorry, how many cattle are in Canada, it works out to, you know, 70 cents a cow of today's dollars. In 20 years, that'll only be like 30 cents a cow. So we're at a moment of time here where what we decide and what we do, our grandkids and our great-grandkids are going to have to deal with this. This is a major moment in time for us. Are we going to mortgage that for 70 cents a cow, right? And not consider the downstream effects, what that's going to do to small communities? So I made some, the reason I'm standing up here is because I made some social media posts about this, and one of them, the first one was sharing Don's flyer, and then it got me thinking more and more, and I started making more of my posts with my thoughts, and they went pretty crazy. Like, I think it's 750,000 views or something now on some of these. So people start sending me things. People start sending me, hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? And so you get your own team of detectives out there that are sending you stuff, and they start reading. You got a whole bunch of eyes reading through the CFIA documents. And so my thought is, okay, they want to put these regulations to chase the European market, right? And I thought, well, that's dumb, because we're going to chase a market that already put in these regulations that destroyed their own industry. They already wrecked their cattle industry, and we're going to replicate that? Like, that didn't make sense to me. But that's actually not what it is. If you go and look at the CFIA documents, or even Canadian Cattle Association documents, they talk about One Health. They're promoting this concept called One Health. Well, what the heck is One Health? Okay, well, One Health, and it says the CFIA has signed on to One Health. They have signed on to implement One Health. Well, what the heck is One Health, right? One Health is an initiative by an organization called the World Organization of Animal Health. The acronym is WOA. So it's essentially the WHO, for cattle. Or for all animals, sorry, not just cattle, for all animals. And their purpose, and this is not tinfoil hat. This is, my hat's nice and loose here. This is on the CFIA's own documents, and just go and Google Canadian Cattle Association One Health, and they've got articles in their magazine that they're pumping it up. Like, this is what it is. And so their purpose is to have a one world database for all animals. All animals. And so if you read through there, it says we have to get Canada on board, and then we have to get the US on board. So, like, this isn't being driven by what they say it's being driven. You know, when they say, well, we're just trying to make it so all animals or all cattle movements to keep Canadians safe. Well, no, this is a doctrine that they signed on to. They have to do this. Like, they've signed an agreement that they have to implement this. This isn't producer-driven. This isn't industry-driven. This is a couple people in Ottawa signed on that we're going to promote One Health. So, yeah, I don't know what more to say about that. That's just do some searching for yourself. I've had quite a few newspaper interviews and different things like that. And today the Globe and Mail contacted me, and I did an interview with them today. And what really resonated with her, and she was great, what really resonated with her was the small producer cost and driving out small producers. And, you know, it's going to have effect on the price of beef on the store shelf too, right? And that really resonated with her. And so if you're out talking to people, I'd recommend, you know, that's a big factor not to forget. So what can we do? Yeah, Jason said a few things. We need to obviously stand together in solidarity. But I have another idea. So there's lots of people in here that I'm sure sitting on different boards. Maybe it's feeder associations, 4-H, county boards. Alberta beef producers are here, and they have their annual their producer meetings here, and we can go to them and put forward resolutions. Whatever board you're on that's agriculture focused, like ag societies as well, we need to put forward resolutions and show a united front as a province, as an industry, put forward resolutions and get them passed that say, we are requesting that the CFIA halts for 3 years while we are able to do an economic analysis of the downstream effects of this. We have to get some sort of pause here, because this moment is major. Like, Like, I can't stress that enough. This isn't just thinking, well, I got to report a little bit more. We have seen this in other industries. Like, how many people in the oil and gas world do you see that have like an owner-operator truck or backhoe or something? Like, that overregulation there has wiped out the small producer. And we can't let that happen with cattle now, right? So the question is deeper. It's deeper than just deciding if we're going to conform to regulations. It's, as a society, do we value the ability for people to raise their own food? And to take it away, to take that away from someone, to say, we put on so much regulation that you're not going to have those 2 grass steers, you know, on your acreage, or you're not going to have those 20 cows because you want your kid to have that lifestyle growing up. Do we value people raising their own food and value people knowing where their food comes from? Like, that's an important thing to think about right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lance. Don, do you want to come over here? So it is 10 to 8. We do have a few minutes if people have questions or would like to make a comment. Don's going to hold the mic right there. You need to use the mic for the live stream. And because of the number of people here tonight, I don't want to be the meanie, but just a quick question, not a long comment. So if I ask you and cut you off, please don't be offended. We have a lot of voices here that want to be heard tonight. So just start to line up the center aisle.
Here? Okay, you're first.
Just a quick question, Lance. You said that there was economic analysis where they did the cost-benefit analysis of $158 million. Where was that?
Lance, you want to come up here? Jason, do you want to come up here too in case there's a question for you?
You can grab the other mic too. There's another mic.
Sorry, I was a bit nervous when I was standing up here earlier. Hopefully I can think more clearly now. So whenever any proposed changes in any regulation, they have to publish it in something called Gazette 1. Honestly, I never knew about this previous to 2 weeks ago. I never heard of Gazette 1. But it doesn't matter what regulation or rule is happening, they have to publish it in something called Gazette 1. It's a federal document. So if you go to Gazette 1, it was published in 2023 with all the proposed changes by the CFIA for traceability. What was the exact wording? It was actually kind of funny. Anyways, you'll find it. It's very long, and it has that economic analysis in it. In that economic analysis, it also says that they have to hire more CFIA agents. So, yeah.
So is Quebec exempt from this?
Yes, they have their own system, and they're exempt too.
So that's another reason why we want to have an independent Alberta.
I knew that was coming. Mr. Stevenson, do you have an answer for that? Quebec has their own livestock traceability system. I do not know how it's different from the Alberta system or the Canadian system. We'll just give Mr. Stevenson a minute to come up here. And once again, thank you for attending. Good to see you again.
Thank you for inviting me up here. Just to give you a little history, I raised cattle for 10 years myself, and I was only elected in April, so I have 8 months, so I don't have Ottawa disease yet. But when I got there, one of the things I did is because I didn't know a lot of the people there, I sat down and every time anybody speaks in the house, it gives their name and where they're from. And I spent a lot of time in the first few months figuring out who was going to have similar ideas and who I can work with and team up with for different ideas. And when I look at it, we really only have a half a dozen that are directly related conservative MPs to cattle producers at the moment. We have some second generation people that are raised with farming backgrounds, but we don't have a lot. So we need to have this voice that's here to actually be loud enough to resonate that we can spread around to the other MPs out there so they're informed. So you have to keep your word going, and you have to keep that going. Now, as far as Quebec goes, I'm sorry, I don't know the details on their system yet, but just something to be looking into. One of the things that I think that we probably need to do right away, and I didn't come up with wording yet, but one of the things we can do, we go back to the House in Parliament at the end of January. One of the things we can do is a petition, and we can get a petition that's strongly worded enough to stop this. And I think we need to get on that right away. I'll work with my my staff to get that going so we can get it working with the rest of it. So.
Thank you.
That question, I was nervous up here and I forgot a couple things. That question triggered something. It's important to remember we have an existing traceability system. Like that is number one thing to remember and say. Like it's not like we don't have traceability. We have a traceability system that has never failed. We have a traceability system that works. So what they're talking about is a slight improvement to speed. A slight improvement to speed that may result in, if there is a border closure, it may result in a slightly faster opening of the border. That's what they're talking about. How many border closures are based on fact? Right? Like, I don't think there's a health concern with canola right now, right? So even when BSC, if you remember back to that, it should have been open quicker. There's no reason it wasn't open quicker. We had all the facts on our side to be open quicker. And it didn't open when it should have opened. So that's a lot of ifs. Like that economic analysis that I gave, that 158 million or whatever, that's what they're saying. Oh, we can open it quicker. Well, maybe you were able to track something down quicker. Maybe we even have an outbreak. First of all, you got to actually have an outbreak. Then you actually got to have a border closure. Then you actually got to say, well, maybe we could have traced it down quicker. Then the political decisions actually have to be made in your favor to open the border. Like we put a lot of emphasis on border closure, and it's because it's still fresh in our mind from BSC. So I get that.
Can I just add to that? I was talking to a woman yesterday who worked for CCIA, and she said, we've already got a traceability program, or she used to work for CCIA, and she said, we've already got a really good traceability program going, so why do we need more?
And so that, you know, our existing manifest brand inspector hot brand system isn't going away. We're just duplicating it. Like we're just going to be doing double traceability system here.
Everything you went through with the deer, I went through with cattle. I had 15, 20 years ago, I bought a herd of animals, brought them home. One tested positive, not that I bought, it was somebody else purchased it, and they traced the animals back to our farm. And when it was said and done, I was out over $40,000. They came in, told me where I had to ship the cattle to, have them killed. They told me I'd be compensated, which the compensation was, well, thanks for doing it. And I know exactly where you're coming from on that. I was just lucky enough that the animals I bought hadn't been dispersed into the rest of my cattle. They went into a pasture and were kept separately. And it hit at a time of year where I didn't have to feed the whole herd. They were still out grazing. I was just able to keep these isolated. It took them 2 months to figure out what they wanted to do, where they wanted to do it. We had to provide all the labor, run them through, test them, do everything. And by the way, none ever did test positive at my place. They were a good group of animals, but they got put down and that was the end of it. And the other thing I'm wondering, two things I'm curious about is this a precursor to a methane tax once they know where the animals are and how much they're? Because if you take a look at our leadership, he's in love with European ways, and that's been proposed over there, and there was talk about it here. The other thing is, does it apply to horses?
This is all new. I can't say for sure, but I'm told it's every four-legged animal. And so,
to take your horse out if you want to go camping out west.
this is a start of it. Like in Europe, they have passports for their cattle, and that's not bullshit. They're giving drugs to the cows in Denmark. You know, like it is a precursor, all that. And to go back to your compensation, so we had to prove what our animals were worth. I got 30 cents on the dollar. So that's where we were at. It ended up being a big number, but.
Yeah, we had the same thing, and I'd only owned the cattle for a few months, and I had the invoice where I paid for them, and that didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't matter at my place.
No.
And when I say I got 30 cents, they put a maximum of $4,000 on my females. So it didn't matter if all my females were sold for 10 grand. And they put a maximum of $8,000 on my males. And those numbers were about 15 or 16 years old. And that's what'll happen in the cattle industry too. They're not gonna take this year's numbers. They're gonna pick the year that was crappy. And that's what the CFIA does. And I didn't say this there, but I said it last meeting, is the people that are making these decisions, a lot of them, the government hires are new Canadians. They have no idea. They've never been on a farm. They have no idea what it takes to raise these and what to do it. So it is not, it's not traditional Canadians making these decisions anymore.
All I was gonna suggest is that if it does include horses, just send it to the associations with the showing. You want a bunch of pissed off horsewomen on your case.
Hello, I'll try to be brief. Please keep in mind that the only places in the world where people are starving is where the government controls the food supply. And that is where this is going. It's not the first step. And if we buckle under to this, we are just one step closer to becoming Venezuela. So.
Hi there. I'm a wannabe farmer. While in line to make a quick comment about digging down the holes, I want to give a shout out to Chris Dacey and Dacey Media and Mike Rude of The Rude Awakening. They're right there. Everything I know about CFIA is because of those two and the awareness campaign of those ostriches. I know it's a touchy topic, but that's why I'm here. The other thing is, Mr. Stevenson just brought up the One Health. This is controversial. I had a dog that was in need. I did some research on the Canadian Veterinarian Medical Association and the Alberta Veterinarian Medical Association. Sad to say, but they all are here to support One Health. I have a friend who's a farmer. She doesn't want to report anything to her vets. I know this is controversial. It is. And then I found some job descriptions for the CFIA. I'm going to post them on Don's Dirt's website.
Maybe.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no. You got to know what these people don't lack, or what they do lack.
Thank you.
Anyway, and I'm still waiting for Blaine Calkins to return my telephone call from about a month ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. So I guess the question that I have is, so what are we all supposed to do? Signing a petition is great, but what else are we supposed to do? Like, should we be writing letters? Who should we be talking to? Should we go protest somewhere? Like, signing a petition is fine, but it's gonna make them pay attention.
Well, I think immediately, I probably stumble over my words a bit, but I think immediately, if we're on any boards for any agriculture-based organization, we have to put resolutions forward, including going to the Alberta beef producer meetings, and put resolutions forward requesting that the CFIA give us a pause for 2 years or 3 years in order for a proper economic assessment to be done. You can word it however you want like that, but we have to show solidarity that we're asking for a 3-year pause. And maybe there's other things to be done by that. But I bet everybody in this room, you know, has some connection to an egg society of some sort.
Personally, I say paused is not the same as stopped, and we've got some suggestions at the end.
So that getting every group together, it is imperative that the horse people, the dog people, the sheep people, the goats, the chickens, whatever, if it's not everybody, we'll fail. Because that's where the deer were different, of course. They're different. And we tried to get the Canadian Cattlemen Association on board. They wouldn't get on board with some of our stuff, and that's some of the reason we failed. Not pointing fingers, but that's how it worked. This industry is big enough that we got to make sure that we partner up with all the ag societies, if it has anything to do with agriculture, 4-H, everything. And that's the only way we'll beat this, the only way.
So I guess my point being, by the time we leave here tonight, everyone needs to know a plan, what they should be doing to go forward, like writing letters or whatever, but we can't just all leave and nobody has a plan, I guess.
It's the letters from your ag societies and the Alberta beef producers. If every association, the president of this or the president of that, the director of this, if every one of those associations in the next 2 or 3 weeks has letters into all the federal MPs that are involved in this, which of course are Liberals, and your local MPs, that is what's going to get the ball rolling. It has to go to all of them. And it's we need 250 societies in Alberta, and then phone your neighbors and your family in Saskatchewan and BC and Manitoba. It has to be everywhere.
Okay, thanks.
And the other thing is not to stop. CFIA paused the program. They'll let us have a few meetings and blow off some steam, and when everyone goes home, then they'll start up again. So if you want to make a difference, you cannot stop. Call your MP, call your MLA, send an email. If they get one email from one person, it's easy to ignore. If their inbox has 100 emails every day for 2 months, they're going to know something. They're going to know that people want change.
Can I just add to that? I was on the Alberta Greenhouse Growers Association board. I'm actually not a beef producer. I was a greenhouse grower for many years, had a farm. And when they came out with the carbon tax, I phoned Rachel Notley's office every day for 6 weeks, and I left a message on her answering machine, and she finally phoned me back and said, please stop calling me. And I continued to call. So, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to put in some perspective. 26 years ago, I was on CCIA. I was on the original board, and we experienced the exact same thing that's happening now. CFIA came with their European style. They wanted us to follow that, and we were able to curb that enthusiasm, and we had meetings similar to this. We also relied on other associations to give us the background that we needed. So it's interesting to me that after all that time, this has circled back. CFIA has finally found some weak links that have allowed them to push forward with this. And we need to continue to fight it. And it can be done because we did it once before and we'll do it again.
Love it. Thank you. Keep it short. Just keep it short. Couple words.
Hi. Vicki from Calgary. I'm not a farmer, but I appreciate each and every one of you. And I hear this word pause, and I'm going to try and be real quick. I'm a little nervous, even sweaty. I hear that word pause, and we all have heard the analogy of the frog in the pot. So they just, he said pause. They just turn the heat down a little bit while they shove in a few more things, and you're easy with that. We're being boiled alive, and I'm not going to get into the ostrich situation because I'm not okay with that. But I will say what is wrong with this is that C. That's what I'm going to say. And there's already stuff in motion. And he said, Alberta we're smart. Not only that, we're rich, and we can do it, and we have to come together. Even if we have different ideas here and there, that's okay. Albertans are hard workers. We got common sense. We're smart. Okay, I'm done. I love you. Thank you.
My name is Linda Thurston. I'm from Big Valley, Alberta. I'm a 5th or 6th generation rancher. We've been on the land since 1906. So the immediate that we got word of this, I spent the last couple days on the phone with some of my checkoff representatives. Canadian Cattlemen's Association has completely failed us. Alberta beef producers, very slow to take up the cross for these people that are here tonight. But I do know that within the Alberta beef producers, we have some support. So that's number one, where we need to go from here. We need to get behind them, get to your ABP meetings. They are forced by the membership to come forward with a resolution. That resolution will carry weight. The other thing that you all need to do is get on the phone, and we need to get our end markets to support us. Because what the government will do is they will just simply bring it in and force it. But they already have a traceability program. It's worked. It's like Lance said. It's like Tim talked about the other night with Chris Scott. The system works. It doesn't fail. But if we can't get the packers and we can't get the auction markets and we can't get the big feedlots to come and stand up for the family farm, the individual producers, that our kids, our grandkids, the future of this province, we're in big trouble. But you know what I see out here today? Hope. I see the trucker rally. I see all the strength of everything that's good in the West. So fight.
5 more minutes. We got 5 more minutes.
My name is Harvey Brink, and I just farm southwest of Bentley there, and I was a victim of the CFIA as well too. Not in your extreme case, but I bought a load of calves in Billings, Montana in the early 2000s, and the trucker didn't quite make it to the border, so he sat with the load of cattle till 8 o'clock the next morning because the border closed at that time. But then anyways, they came to my place and settled in, and CFIA came onto my yard, and I was just wondering why you came onto my yard. And the only reason why they came is because there's one signature on a piece of paper that wasn't filled out right. So we fought tooth and nail, trying to keep the cattle in my pen so that they had to go back to Montana. So they loaded up the calves. They weren't even on my farm for a week. And we had to load them back up and bring them across the border, unloaded the back end of the trailer. Oh, they look good. Load them all back up again, and then it came back to my place again. So just because of the one signature, just one check mark, made a load of cattle go back. So there's different scenarios on the CFIA, what they do. So that's my comment there.
You're holding the mic. Thank you. My name is Bathsheba Vandenberg, and I'm from the city of Red Deer. I am a lawyer that practices regulatory law, and I represented the protesters in Ottawa. So if you just coming back on the last comment, and I'm dating a farmer, and I'm from a descendant of farmers. So I really care about these changes that are coming, and that's why I came tonight, is to learn more. Got one thing and then a question. I know we got a few minutes. So I just want to say this One Health thing is very real. It freaks me out. It's also in the NATO doctrine. Anyways, have a look. It's everywhere. And in my view, it's a lot about surveillance and data collection. And that's no conspiracy theory. Just read the laws. I have a question, and it's a suggestion, because there's a lot of this, what can we do? There's an MLA here tonight, so I've got a question for you, wherever you are. Can we not sort of, as constituents, or just, as ratepayers, intermunicipalities, and on the constituency association boards, can we not get a message to the government of Alberta to have some sort of act passed that would ring fence Alberta and protect the jurisdiction of this province so that the federal regulations don't apply? Because if we already have a system, we don't need another system. Can we not have a sort of a bill from the proposed?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for the lead up so I could actually get to the front in time. What a really interesting observation I had through all of this, and I think it was mentioned before about Alberta inspectors in getting the C out of the CFIA. I know that was you. I know during COVID, CFIA inspectors actually refused to go to JBS and to Cargill. And they were shutting down these plants. And we actually had Alberta inspectors, Alberta food inspectors, going into the CFIA plants, keeping the cattle industry alive. So that was something that if we were allowed to have Alberta inspectors in these federally regulated, in these export markets, and the markets didn't fail, then why couldn't we do that again? So I know Quebec has an exemption, something that I think we need to look at in Alberta. If we can have our beef inspectors into our international markets and be inspectors, why can't we expand that and do it more? So I'm agreeing with you.
Can you sort of please provide a map of the how? Because how can we, as people here tonight, go back to our boards? For example, some of us sit on CA boards. I sit on a CA board, but you don't need to sit on one. You can approach the MLA and say, that needs to be discussed in the Legislative Assembly in Alberta to propose a bill. There needs to be a bill.
Well, we have a UCP caucus meeting actually just tomorrow morning. And I know R.J. Sigurdsson, I've talked to him about this as soon as I read this on the social media when I first heard about it. So we are having these conversations, and I know Premier Danielle Smith is very interested into trying to find ways that we can strengthen the province. So I think more to come, but I think this is a really good start to doing better things here in Alberta.
Well, it needs to happen fast.
Tomorrow morning's pretty quick.
Hello, my name is Grayson Marshall. I'm a third-generation cattle farmer, and I just had a question. It was touched on very briefly at the beginning, but I know there's farmers. I've worked for them. I've worked for Go for Ag Services for the past 2 years, so I've been on multiple farms, anywhere from 20 acres to over 3,000. When I know most of us have boneyards when we talk about disposing of our cattle for whatever reason. Is there a minimum requirement of how specific we have to be about the location of our boneyards?
With these new regulations? Yes. I don't believe so. I haven't seen any. There may be some buried deep down someplace, but from the PDF that I saw and the other research I did not see any evidence of that.
Okay, thank you.
So in the last 10 years of the deer industry, they started bringing regulations just in for us. So we incinerated all our dead. So I still have an incinerator. So, but now we incinerate it if we lose a calf. But it came into the deer, so I suspect it's on its way. So, but we incinerated all our animals. So that's the rules that came that way for us.
May I ask how much did your incinerator cost your farm?
About 16 grand, and it only fits calves. It don't fit cows.
I put in a call to the ABP this week, and Brad Dubrow got back to me. And it seemed that his most important thing was keeping borders open, and that they seem to be interested in complying to whatever it does to do that. I told him the CFIA would not have jurisdiction in an independent, sovereign Alberta. He said that upset him, that he thought that Canada was the one that held our export contracts and that Alberta wouldn't have any, but I would suspect Alberta probably would have them in place about the same minute that we got to be sovereign. So if you have any complaint about how you think the producer meetings go this week or how you think the ABP has been handling this, remember that January 31st is the refund deadline for getting your checkoff back.
Okay, and I'm going to call up Dawn for a final comment before we close the meeting. Dawn is not a beef producer. She used to run a greenhouse, like she said, and then for a variety of different circumstances, she had to step away from that. You're supposed to be close to me.
Oh, sorry. I don't listen very well.
And then the amount of work she has done in the last month to get this information out to people like you is admirable. And this meeting would not have happened. This meeting would not have happened if not for the hard work of Dawn. And where's Andrea? Okay, someone's pointing at her way in the back. Andrea was the one who first noticed this and brought it to everyone's attention. So let's have a big round of applause for those two ladies.
Can you
Sure.
read this? So I'm going to disregard everything I learned in 4-H, and I'm just going to read my speech because I want it to be heartfelt, and I want it to be heard, and I want it to just resonate with you. So if you can bear with me just reading. Before we close tonight, I want to speak from the heart, and I want to speak from conversations I have had over the phone and with people this entire week, because what I heard this week is what brought us here tonight. But before any of those calls, before social media took off, before this meeting became what it is tonight, everything started with one single phone call. A 4-H mom reached out to me and said, "Dawn, something doesn't seem right." I asked her why she was so concerned, and her answer was simple, honest, and deeply emotional. "I want my farm to be here for my children." That one sentence, that one fear is the heartbeat of this entire room. Every person here tonight, whether you farm, support farmers, or simply feed your family, wants the same thing: a future. A strong food system, a place where your children and grandchildren can raise animals, grow food, and live without fear of being regulated out of existence. Her courage is the reason we are sitting here tonight. All week long, my phone has been ringing. One woman told me about her 12 years in traceability, how it shifted from producers helping producers to polished presentations, office decisions, and people making rules who no longer lived in agriculture in their day-to-day lives. She told me the disconnect is the issue. Another woman admitted she is terrified that if she takes her animal to a cattle show and a disease is detected, CFIA could come in and wipe out her entire herd. That's not out of the realm of possibility with CFIA. That fear comes from deep mistrust, and that mistrust comes from a system people no longer feel protected by. And before I move on, I want to share something personal. Sorry, I didn't mean to cry. I was a mid-sized vegetable producer, and bureaucracy killed my farm. That is why I'm speaking out. So when I talk about overregulation, when I talk about the weight of red tape, when I talk about rules written far away by people who don't live the work, I am not speaking hypothetically. I lived it. I lost something that I built with my own hands. I was a second-generation greenhouse grower because the system grew too big, too rigid, too disconnected from the land and from the people who work it. That is why this matters so deeply to me. I don't want to see another farm sold out by bureaucracy, and that is why it should matter deeply to everyone in this room tonight. What this week has made crystal clear is this: there is a massive disconnect between the people making policy and the people raising our food. Farmers want to grow food at a fair price, and consumers want to buy good food at a fair price. The problem lies in everything in the middle: the bureaucracy, the red tape, the overcomplicated system standing between farm and table. Be it right or wrong, farmers did not know about these proposed regulations. Board members did not reach the people they represent. Emails replaced conversations. That is how we ended up here. Yes, everyone has a piece of the responsibility, but everyone also has a role in repairing it. Now I want to address something that came up in Now I want to address something that came up in almost every single phone call I had in the past couple of days. CFI says that the regulations are paused. Paused does not mean stopped, and we won't stop. Farmers have told me loudly and repeatedly that this feels like gaslighting, and the answer is no. We are not accepting this quietly. We are not just going to get used to it. And we know that paused is simply not stopped. And if you agree with that, if you want your voice heard, please stand up now. Let the people in this room, let the people in this room who are carrying this message back to CFIA hear you loud and clear. Paused is not stopped, and producers do not accept this. To our elected officials in the room and watching, you are public servants. Your job is to serve the people, the farmers and the consumers, the family, the next generation. Service means listening. Service means transparency. Service means meaningful change. And to the large-scale and small-scale producers here tonight, I encourage you, go have a cup of coffee with your neighbors. Bridge the divide. Unity across every type, every size of operation is the only way forward. Backyard flocks to major ranchers. Every operation matters. Every producer counts. This entire situation began because communication failed. Let tonight be the turning point. As you leave tonight, farmers and consumers, I want you to ask yourself, what can I do? What future do I want for my children? What kind of food system am I helping to create or allowing to be created? Because here's the truth. We, the people, the farmers and the consumers have the power to change this system. But it begins with action by all of us. Here are some ways that you can take action. There will also be an email emailed out to you, which is kind of ironic, me saying this right now. Create awareness, host local meetings, post on social media, talk to neighbors and friends, have a cup of coffee, petition, sign and share the Stop the New CFIA Traceability Regulations at change.org. Write letters and make phone calls. I did every day for 6 weeks to Rachel Notley's office, and my industry actually got an 80% rebate after that, so it does work. Write letters, make calls. Tell the following people to halt the regulations: CFIA, MPs, and thank you the ones that are here tonight. Federal and provincial ministers of agriculture, the Premier, MLAs, Ag Service Boards, Canadian Cattle Association, Alberta Beef Producers, Alberta Feeders Association, Alberta Auction Markets, Western Stock Growers, Livestock Dealers, 4-H Alberta, and the Alberta Prosperity Project. Attend industry meetings, participate in producer meetings, ag boards, town halls, and industry conferences. Show up where decisions are being discussed. Purchase memberships, support advocacy groups, apply for board positions, get involved in boards representing producers of all sizes, chicken boards, dairy boards, grain boards, greenhouse boards, vegetable boards, beef boards, beef associations, and any other boards related to agriculture.
Like rodeos and stampedes for the live stream audience.
Absolutely. Sell or slaughter locally. Strengthen local farm-to-table food systems. Bureaucracy. I'm getting a little dry here. Sorry. Bureaucracy will hurt strengthen local farm-to-table food systems. Bureaucracy will hurt these small systems. Tonight is monumental, but it is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the beginning of a conversation, a collection. It is the beginning. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink of. Tonight is monumental. It is not the end. It is the beginning of conversation, connection, courage, and collective action. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you for standing up. Thank you for fighting for your farms. Thank your families and thank you for fighting for your farms, your families, and your future. Let's go forward together and make our voices impossible to silence.
If everyone just wants to have a seat for the last 2 minutes here. Like I said earlier, this started with one Facebook post 30 days ago. A lot can happen when people are united in wanting change. When we started this, I thought this is crazy, taking on the CFIA. They don't listen, nothing's going to change. And then to see an audience like this, and however many are watching on the live stream, it's pretty incredible to see people united. It was my Facebook post in December, Dawn's 2 weeks ago, and now the UCP caucus, the government is going to be discussing this very issue tomorrow morning. That is the power of the people when we demand change. Don't ever forget that. So your homework, call your MLA, call your MP, send emails to both. If you want to attend the Alberta beef producers producer meetings that are taking place all across the province, Google it. They are selling tickets on Eventbrite. I think it costs $10 and you get a full meal out of it. The Olds meeting is when? Do you guys know? The 27th. Go home, buy your ticket, show up there on the 27th, and tell all the representatives how you feel about this. The AGM for the Alberta beef producers takes place in April. If you, March? What day? And that's on Eventbrite as well? Oh, but you can buy tickets on Eventbrite? Just show up. If you don't show up, if you stay home, that means someone else is going to be making decisions about your future. So you have to show up, you have to be in the room to make change. And it all started with 2 Facebook posts. We don't know how far this is going to go, but this is a good start. Once again, thank you to all the elected officials who came here tonight. Mr. Dreeshen, thank you. Mr. Stevenson, thank you. Please, if they can stick around for a few minutes, please go tell them you are so thankful that they had the courage to show up. One of my pet peeves is when you have elected people, not just to government office, but to boards, when they don't have the courage to meet the people who put them there. So thank you both for coming tonight. And we look forward to hearing an update about the caucus meeting tomorrow. So thank you. Have a good night, everyone, and drive safe.